When I was younger, I used to do 14 different extracurriculars all at the same time. And the people around me kept telling me, "Oh, you're so productive. Oh, you're doing so amazing." Which I wasn't really. I was always tired and I never had energy to do anything anymore. But I used to be the motivated one. And now I had zero energy and I just kept telling myself, "Oh, you're just lazy." Except I wasn't. I was burnt out. And I see more and more people falling into this trap. And part of it is because we live in a world which doesn't really let us slow down anymore, but we can't just blame the world around us. So let's actually talk about it. What is burnout? What can cause it? And how can you fix it? Let's get into it. What's the actual difference between laziness and burnout? Laziness is a choice. Burnout isn't, it's a consequence. It's a chronic state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion caused by prolonged, unmanaged stress. Laziness is just a temporary lack of desire to do a necessary task. Burnout gives you apathy, dread, and a loss of joy for the things you used to enjoy, while laziness doesn't even touch your ability to feel joy. When you're burnt out, you're constantly anxious, dreadful, cynical, or even numb, when laziness just makes you not give a hoot. Biologically, burnout isn't a personality flaw. It's a physiological dysregulation, wrecking your nervous system, your brain chemistry, your metabolic functions, and making your stress management system go from working hard to broken. What are some things that can cause burnout, and how can you solve these issues? Setting impossibly high standards for yourself. If you're an extremely ambitious person, as I am, this can cause you a lot of trouble. And don't get me wrong, it is amazing to shoot for the stars, and being delusional is a superpower, but it can also be a curse. We have to be realistic sometimes. And I believe that pressure turns coal into diamond, but even diamonds, the hardest material on earth, can be shattered into tiny little pieces under enough force. You are not a machine. And yes, it is incredibly important to reach your goals, but not at the cost of yourself. The fix here is to stop planning for the ideal and start planning for reality. You have to know your limits, and not just the limits of the version of you that you have created in your head. If you don't know what your actual limits are, do this. Write down what you do every day for a month and then review it at the end. And now you'll know what you can actually realistically make happen and what you've been expecting of yourself that wasn't possible, which was quietly feeding your anxiety. Not having clear boundaries. Can't say no. I see you. The amount of times I've said, "Oh, it'll just take 2 minutes, it's fine." But then those 2 minutes turn into 2 hours, and suddenly you don't have time for the things that actually matter to you anymore. And I know it's hard, but you have to set boundaries. And if you're trying to get everybody to like you at the cost of your own dreams and goals, sooner or later you're gonna have to realize that people won't actually like you for you, but they will like you for the things that you can do for them, which is not the same. The fix here is not to say no to everything, but to think about what you say yes to. Because sadly, in this world, we do not have unlimited time or energy. And being a little bit selfish isn't a character flaw in the situation, it's the only way to stop people pleasing from draining you dry. Too much to do, too little time. I have fallen into this trap more times than I can count. I love maxing out my time, but that does not mean you should max out every single second. If you have too much to do on your plate, prioritize. Pick what actually matters and go. Because if you don't, you will get overwhelmed, you will give up, and the guilt and anxiety will only pile up on what you have already had. Here's the thing most people miss. When you're overloaded, the quality of everything you do also takes a hit. So sometimes it is better to do less and to do it well rather than to try to do everything and spread yourself thin just to end up with a bunch of mistakes and bad quality but good quantity work. So just pick out what matters the most and run with it because you can figure out the rest later on. Poor recovery. This can mean a lack of sleep, poor nutrition, not being able to fully mentally check out. One thing that took me really, really long to accept here was that rest doesn't make you lazy. Rest is actually one of the most productive things you can do because you cannot do quality work when your mind is scattered across 30 different tabs and you're constantly nodding off at your desk or hunger is gnawing at your stomach. This is not discipline. If anything, it just makes you a liability to your own goals. The fix is actual rest. Not 3 hour TikTok scrolls, not inhaling a protein bar at your desk and then calling it lunch, and most definitely not waking up at 5 a.m. out of guilt because your to do list is too long. Actually, take care of yourself. Make sure the foundation is solid before you try to build on it because a skyscraper built on sand will never actually get finished. Sleep enough so you can focus. Actually, properly fuel yourself and sit down to enjoy your food. Schedule downtimes, not just productive rest. So when you actually have to show up, you can show up as your best, most authentic self. Insufficient rewards. We need to stop ignoring our own wins. We'll always want more, and that's human. But if we never look behind us and actually appreciate all the work we have already put in, we will never feel fulfilled no matter how much we achieve. You can cross off goal after goal, but if you're running on a treadmill that never stops, eventually you just won't be able to keep running. The fix is to pair every goal with a reward. And this doesn't have to cost you anything. I think a lot of the times nowadays we associate rewards with something that has to cost us a fortune. This can be a long walk, a call to a friend, a relaxing bath. And this also does double duty because it creates motivation. It makes you excited for the reward, so you actually want to finish the task. And it also tells your brain that effort gets acknowledged. The other part of this is to stop waiting for other people to hand you validation. Make your own praise, your own recognition the priority. Because if your sense of accomplishment depends on other people noticing, you will lose hope way before they do. So make your own voice the loudest. Because as soon as that happens, the stress that you have from not getting acknowledged that causes the burnout will start losing its grip. An issue I see a lot of people face nowadays is that they don't have clear direction or goals. And this is sneaky because it doesn't feel like a reason for burnout. It feels like restlessness because you're done with one goal and instead of feeling done, you're immediately jumping onto the next one, never actually landing anywhere. It's a kind of exhaustion that is hard to name because you're achieving, but you still feel like you're failing. The fix is to write your goals down. One or several, it doesn't really matter. But once you reach that goal, stop and acknowledge it. Don't let your brain just jump past the finish line so you'll actually feel accomplished. But what if I genuinely don't know my goal? Well, then you're spending time without direction, and it is definitely worth it to pause to actually find one, even if it's a small one. And most likely, you actually have something pulling at you, you just haven't put it to words yet. So, try journaling these. What did you love doing before anyone told you it wasn't practical? If money and other people's opinions weren't a factor, how would you actually spend your time? What do you find yourself reading, researching, or watching for fun without anyone asking you to? Whose life or work do you admire? And specifically, what part of it do you admire? If nothing changed for the next 5 years, would you be at peace with it? If not, what needs change? Now, here's the other half of this issue. A lot of the time, the tasks that burn us out are usually not necessary. And obviously, I'm not talking about the unavoidable stuff. I'm talking about the yes you said because you could not say no. And this is why boundaries are so important. Because every time you say yes to a question, a favor, or something else that doesn't bring you towards your goals, you are borrowing from your own energy reserves, making yourself more and more burnt out because eventually you will be left for no energy for what actually makes you happy. Another issue you might be having is that you are not enjoying the journey. And this can be because of a lot of things. You can be overwhelmed or too focused on the outcome, or maybe even in a toxic environment that drains you out before you can even get to your goal. And goals are important because they give us direction and motivation, but they're also not the most important. Because if you're just constantly going and going and going to reach a goal, but never actually stopping and never actually being present, all you're gonna get is an empty sense of accomplishment that doesn't even last. And nowadays, we live in this culture that really glorifies the grinding and disciplined aesthetic. And don't get me wrong, discipline is good. We love discipline. But if you're just getting through everything and suffering through the whole process, that is not discipline, darling. That is self torture with a couple of extra steps. The fix here is to set process goals, not just outcome goals. So instead of saying, I want to reach whatever number, say that you will train 4 times a week for 2 months, for example. And you have to celebrate the small wins along the way. Don't just save all of the celebration for when you finally reach your goal. And we also have to learn to reframe discipline in our minds from self punishment to self respect, because discipline is a form of self respect. It's the highest form of self respect, in fact. But a lot of us seem to think that for some reason it's punishment. And another very important thing is that if you're in a toxic environment, then most of your issues are probably not because of your willpower. Then your environment is something that you need to change. And it's not because you don't have enough discipline or motivation or you don't have goals. It's because it's physically and mentally draining you. So fix the problem and leave. Balance is the key to life. Anything in excess, even the good things, even ambition, even discipline, becomes poison in the wrong dose. So here's your homework for today: rest without guilt. And set the goals, but don't skip the process to get there. And the next time you catch yourself saying, oh, I'm just lazy, stop and ask yourself whether it's actually true, because more times than not, it's usually not laziness, it's burnout. And burnout doesn't need discipline, it needs recovery. So that was today's video. I hope I could give you some direction. Don't forget to do your homework, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!